The Rhine Valley route of Deutsche Bahn AG is one of the most important lines in the country. Numerous express and goods trains run along it. We are in Offenburg, a town with railway history. So it is not surprising that an unusual locomotive that has escaped the cutting torch has found a place here.
Ja, Karl-Heinz, diesmal hat uns die Reise zu einer besonderen Lok ins Rheintal geführt.
Yes, Karl-Heinz, this time our journey has taken us to a special locomotive in the Rhine Valley, to Offenburg to be exact. And now we are standing in front of a large giant, black with red wheels, unfortunately already a little faded. What type of locomotive was the Baden 4H? The Baden 4H was a typical express locomotive built for lowland routes, and it was also based here in the Offenburg depot. It was used on the Basel-Mannheim or Basel-Frankfurt line. It was an impressive engine. When was it built, and how many of them were made? A total of 20 of them were built between 1918 and 1920. The 18323 was built in 1920. As far as I know, it was accepted and put into service at the Offenburg depot on February 11, 1920. Today it is back in Offenburg at the University of Applied Sciences as a memorial locomotive.
Wieder in Offenburg an der Fachhochschule als Denkmallokomotive.
Between delivery, commissioning and decommissioning, it certainly had an eventful life. Yes, it was of course on the main line here in the Rhine Valley, between Basel and Frankfurt or Basel and Mannheim, and also in service hauling the legendary Rheingold. Then there was a time in the 1940s when it was also based in Bremen, also in the lowlands, and after the war in 1951 the locomotive was then sent to the Federal Railway Testing Office in Minden. There it was used as a test locomotive for fast journeys and also for long runs. Once it had a run hauling a train for about 1,000 kilometers in one go. I think that was sensational for a steam locomotive. When you look at it, the locomotive was a classy racer. With its large wheels, it was clearly a locomotive for the lowlands.
When
you stand in front of the original, with the driving wheels that have a diameter of 2.1 meters, it's quite impressive, and also typical for such an express locomotive. This also provides the appropriate speed on the lowlands. It was initially set at 110 kilometers, and then they changed it. Yes, the locomotive was allowed a higher speed so that it was also able to travel at 140 kilometers per hour. And at the testing office in Minden, they most likely went up to speeds of over 150 kilometers per hour. Remarkable. It was simply a noble racer. It's probably because it was a Badische 4H. That says a lot. It was a four-cylinder engine, which we now want to take a look at. Very impressive. A four-cylinder engine, which of course, as you hear from the engineers, was very smooth running compared to a two- or three-cylinder engine. The tender is also a little special. It has a capacity of 29.6 cubic meters for water supplies and can hold 9 tons of coal. What is striking about the tender is that we have a truck at the front and 2 axles are permanently installed in the tender chassis at the rear. And interestingly, the tender has 2 sets of disc wheels and 2 sets of spoke wheels. We can probably no longer explain why this is the case. The length is probably due to the turntables. Yes, I assume that the overall length of the locomotive was due to the turntable. The locomotive has a length of 23.23 meters. It was probably just long enough to fit on the 23-meter turntable. In 1969, the engine, built by Maffei in Munich, now already redesigned, completed some much-noticed farewell trips, which took it to the Black Forest, the Rhine Valley, and its old stomping grounds, including the Altenweg Viaduct. It was then taken out of service in December.
We
are here for a reason. It would make no sense to take a trip without an ulterior motive. Märklin and Trix are presenting the locomotive as a model. Clearly, of course, we have created a model of the locomotive in H0. You have brought along a hand sample. Let's take a look.
Ja, das ist immer wieder imposant.
It's always impressive when you see the original and then the model, these giant wheels. But I also think the realization of the 2.1-meter driving wheels in the model is very impressive in 1:87. Yes, and there it is. Has it been built from original parts? Of course, this is largely a locomotive from the series, and it actually already illustrates the near-series condition.
Seriennahen Zustand.
The fine metal wheels, whose flanges measure 1.1 millimeters for Märklin and 1.0 millimeters for Trix, are a feast for the eyes. Locomotive and tender are largely made of metal. Many parts are attached individually. The distance between the locomotive and tender can be closely adjusted for the display case.
You
have included another small component. If you look here in the area of the engineer's cap, these steps, you've included another part for special showcase layouts. Exactly. The standard version is as we see the locomotive now, with the steps set slightly outwards. This is due to the fact that we can also drive on small radii, because the trailing unit shares out accordingly. Yes, and for purists we have included two parts with the locomotive. This is where the access steps go vertically downwards. To do this, you have to loosen two screws, attach the enclosed parts, and then you have an even more prototypical look. And since it is almost a model from the series, we can take it to the layout and see how the locomotive looks in action. I'd love to. Steam locomotive enthusiasts go into raptures at the sight of the 18323. Some even consider it to be the most beautiful of its kind. And this is reflected in the completely newly developed Märklin and Trix model. A smoke unit is fitted as standard, which provides a speed-dependent, dynamic smoke output. A controlled high-performance drive with flywheel mass is installed in the boiler. Thanks to the mfx-decoder, numerous light and sound functions are available, and, of course, the world of operation mode. The buffer heights on the locomotive and tender correspond to the NEM. It is a pleasure to watch this excellent engine, which stands out pleasantly from the uniform steamers of the Reichsbahn, and thus becomes an eye-catcher on every layout and in every collection. Before we go out on the track, we have to take on some water. This gives us the opportunity to take a closer look at some digital functions, such as the engine lighting. Engineer's cap lighting can also be switched. The firebox flickering can also be called up separately digitally. The pretty engine is now on the track at full steam. Six express train cars that go well with this noble racer will appear as summer 2024 novelties. The model reflects the operating condition around 1966, when the locomotive had already been fitted with Witte wind deflectors. The Caledonian brim on the chimney has been beautifully reproduced. The inducer on the engineer's side is also correct. A dream model that will make the hearts of all steam locomotive fans beat noticeably faster. And you won't have to wait long either, as it will soon be delivered. We wish all future owners lots of fun with this beautiful locomotive.